All right, I believe we are live. I probably have to
Not showing
turn
live.
down my mic. But let's get started. That was an issue last time. It was very, very loud. Anyway, hello and welcome to episode 8 of Laughing into the Void. I'm your host, Tom, and not co-hosting with me as always, we have guest co-host Brooke Schandelmeyer. You can watch our previous broadcasts on the District Comedy YouTube, Facebook channels, or listen to them on Spotify. I received notice that I am loud. Thank you all. But if you want to support the stream, you can always like, share, and subscribe. Alternatively, please consider making a donation this holiday season of any size at district-comedy.live. Your support is mandatory and appreciated. But here with us today, we have Kelly Zemnickis. Kelly is a Toronto-based writer, stand-up comic, and producer, a frequent contributor on the web series TMZ Live. She is also co-producer on the 9/11 first responder documentary, No Responders Left Behind. Additionally, she's a freelance writer and has been published in publications such as Future Female, Chatelaine, I believe it's Chatelaine, Metro UK, Unwritten, and Hello Giggles. Finally, she is the host and producer of the YouTube series It'll Be Fine, the socially distant baking/food chat show. Okay, spotlight removed, gallery view, and now we can all be seen. Yay! But yeah, thank you so much for joining us, Kelly. Quite the extensive resume, very impressive. So
not too shabby.
I'm very happy that you could be here with us. And you've been on the TB and Jake mic a couple times, and Brooks was actually on your show, the cooking show, where you all made rainbow cookies. So that's great. But I'm just gonna go ahead and get us started because we start every show pretty much the same way, where I'm gonna ask you, drumroll, so how would you describe your sense of humor to someone who has never seen you perform?
I've got a pretty dry sense of humor, I think. Yeah, I think I describe myself as a dry sense of humor. Observant of relationships. I'm not a very political comic. I'm kind of, going through stuff of being a single gal in my 40s and the fun that ensues from being single in your 40s.
Right. So that's very cool. I'm sure very relatable to a lot of people out there. Is there anybody, as far as like well-known comedians, who you're like, that vibes with me a ton?
I would say in terms of style, like Wendy Liebman is someone who I find I can really relate to, even in sort of how delivery is, of being a bit slow, a bit drier in pace. I find Wendy is someone I can really connect with. She was actually a big influence on me as a younger kid and a teenager growing up, and just seeing who was on the scene. And in quarantine, we've become Twitter friends, which is super cool.
That is really cool. I just saw a thing yesterday where it's like one of my friends on Facebook was like doing a virtual show with like Maria Bamford, and Maria Bamford is like my idol, and I'm like, oh my god, how is this happening? Clearly I need to network more, but that was just like so cool. But yeah, and remind me, about how long have you been doing stand-up for?
Stand-up, I'm a couple weeks away from my 5-year anniversary.
Oh, congratulations! That's awesome.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, I myself am like in a weird place because Brooks was on the same improv troupe with me as Roz, and that was around for like 8 years, and then me and Roz knew each other a little bit before that. But as far as stand-up comedy specifically, I think I've been to 3 live open mics ever.
No way.
Yeah, so it's kind of weird.
You and me actually like started doing stand up and like open mics together a couple of years ago.
We did. Brooks was much better about it than me.
And we just go off and on though. So like the TV and J mic was the first time we could really like actively do it week after week after week.
Yeah, which
it was for me.
Yeah. it can be kind of intense too, to kind of go from nothing to like 3 minutes of material every week, or now 4 minutes of material every week, because people wanted longer sets. But going back to you, we mentioned in your intro that you're kind of a published author. So I was like reading up, and I saw that last year around October, you had an article published where you kind of write about your venture into stand-up. And in it, this is probably going to be weird for you, because like I've never been in this situation, but I'm about to read your own quote back at you. But you say, "I had the ability to do anything in the world. Actually, I had the responsibility to do that. James couldn't, so I owed it to him to try all the things I wanted to try, like stand-up." So for people who may not have like read that full article, can you kind of expand on that and tell us a little bit about that journey that you had into stand-up comedy?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, every time I get asked by someone, how did you start? I always sort of hesitate. I'm like, do you really want to know? The fact of the matter is, 5 years ago, the love of my life, my first boyfriend, my better half, found out he had cancer far too late. And he got sick pretty quickly from diagnosis to his ultimate passing. And what ended up being our very last conversation, I remember getting off the phone, and I was in my bathroom. I was on the floor, just like ugly crying, like it was gross.
Rightfully so.
Rightfully so. And I got up and I looked at myself in the mirror, and it was like this light bulb went off. I was like, go do everything you've been thinking of. And I'd been thinking of doing stand-up, I would say by that point, for like 5 years. I had this voice in my head that kept telling me, you should probably try stand-up one day. I was like, who is saying this to me? Why would I do that? And when I realized that James wasn't going to be coming home, or we weren't a couple by that point, but when I realized he wasn't going to be getting better and this was pretty much the end of the road, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do anything I have the ability to. And I did my first open mic a week later. That was what pushed me. After like 5 years of this voice in my head, that is what the push was.
Now I gotta ask, how did the first open mic go? I feel that's an easy question.
Yeah.
It was rough. It was pretty rough. I've never had my heart beat that fast in my life. And I don't know about you guys about the first time you ever did it, but I thought I was gonna like just have a heart attack. And I was
Sounds about
so
right.
scared. I was so scared. I think I did about 7 minutes.
Wow.
I think I ended up, I still have it on tape. I think it was about that long. The second I got off the stage, I was like, when the hell can I do that again? I was hooked.
Wow.
Instantly.
Oh my God. Were you supposed to do 7 minutes? Or was it like kind of looser format where they just like
shining the light in your face like
It was a pretty cool format. I was working as a technician, which is how I got my start in comedy, of doing tech at clubs. And it was a club here in Toronto called the Social Capital. And friends of mine ran a room called Bomb Bays. And the concept was, as an artist, you could go do this show and do something you were not known for or good at. So the audience was going to be friendly and kind of be really kind to you. I probably was supposed to do 5, but yeah, I did like 7 minutes.
That's still really cool, though. I mean, I still struggle, I feel, sometimes in like getting up to 10 minutes with like being given notice and like ample time to prepare. So to go straight into 7 minutes is like brava.
Thank you.
But tell us a little bit more about the transition from like, I know that or I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you were in a more formal kind of like TV producer track, and you still do some of that work. But then you kind of, with this transition into stand-up 5 years ago, made some, I think what people would say, pretty radical life changes.
Oh, absolutely. I used to own a home.
Which you can't do if you're in comedy.
Unless you're very, very lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was a production coordinator, and I worked on a wide variety of stuff, from like Deal or No Deal, the Canadian version,
Oh.
or a show a lot of people are fans of, Property Brothers. I worked on their first season.
Mm.
So I was in the office behind the scenes, scheduling the crews, booking the catering, getting the makeup truck, getting the PAs, training people. I was doing all of those jobs that go into a production that nobody watching a show will think about, and putting in, like 15, 20-hour days, 5, 6 days a week, depending on where you were in the season. And that's what I was doing. And I'd been doing that for about 10 years.
Oh, wow.
So a super long time. And yeah, I had a house, I had a condo in downtown Toronto, and I was doing all the, like, I guess if you had like an adult checklist, I was checking off all the things on being a good adult. I had a job, and I was owned property and that kind of stuff. And I was miserable. And when it came around the time after doing this, as I say, for about 10 years, maybe even longer than that, a TV contract ended, and my local diner was looking for a waitress, and they said, "You're here every day. Do you want to work here? You know what the orders are." And, I really, honest and truly, hopped right out of TV homeownership into waitressing at a diner and renting again in my mid-30s. I walked away from everything.
Wait,
Yeah.
it's so crazy, because like hearing you say that now, I'm like, oh my god, I want to do that. But I think it's interesting too that you're kind of like hopping from like you said, like the less, I guess, what people would consider glamorous aspect of entertainment, still into entertainment, but wow, that's still just like, oh god, I want to drop everything and like do what you did, except I've never owned a home. I'm still renting now. But you were, fortunate enough to make these radical changes to your lifestyle in order to pursue stand-up. So for like somebody who's like watching and is kind of feeling the way that I am right now, do you have any advice for someone who would want to kind of follow in your footsteps and similarly like pursue their craft as their main focus? Because I think a lot of people struggle with that transition of like, how do I go from being, balancing the daytime job and the nighttime job to like making stand-up the primary focus?
I think for me, there's so much power in listening to your intuition, in following your gut. When you've got that hunch that something isn't working in your life and you're aware of it, but you keep grinding and doing the stuff and you're not happy, but you're doing it, but something's there. I can't say enough of trying in whatever avenue that you can. Maybe it's taking an acting class at night, or going and doing one stand-up set, just one, see how it goes. I can't say enough good stuff about trying to follow your heart, really. There's something to, I don't know, it was kind of weird, like in my mid-30s, to go, oh yeah, I deserve to be happy. That was a big realization for me, that, okay, yeah, I was making really good money, but I was miserable. I was really miserable, and something felt like it was missing in my life, but I didn't know how to get there. And then that door opened with the waitressing job. Like, that job changed my life. Because working in TV and being behind the scenes, I got very used to being invisible. And like, if nobody knew I was doing my job, then I was doing my job.
Right. Yeah.
And it was pretty lonely, and I got yelled at a lot, unless I didn't get yelled at, which I guess basically no one was talking to me.
Oh.
So the waitressing job was really good for me because it got me engaging with people every day of every different walk of life and storytelling. And I'm so grateful to Chris at the Patrician Diner in Toronto.
Oh.
Yeah.
I can identify a whole lot though with having those jobs that like you are financially taken care of, but just the atmosphere is any interaction with people you have is negative because if you're doing your
Yeah.
job correctly, you're just ignored.
Mhm.
And it's
Yeah.
devastating, especially combined with those 16-plus hour days. Like I did campaigning for the first 6 years out of college, and that's what the life was. Where if someone interacts with you, it's to yell at you.
Yeah, and you're so exhausted, and then you're trying to make executives happy and production managers happy and talent happy, but then it's like, what about you? Like, if you're not
Yeah.
if you're not working, if you're not fulfilled, if you're not rested, if you're not happy, you are running on steam, and you're gonna crash and burn. And I hit that proverbial wall. I've had some people say to me like, "Oh, you're making money and owned a home. Wow, that's a nice problem to have." And um, you know, I get the ribbing, but there is something so big to being happy.
Mhm. And I feel like a lot of people, it is like that aspect of it that is the hardest decision to make because it feels selfish almost to be like,
Yeah.
you know what, I am going to not worry about what other people expect me to have or where in life they expect me to be, and just pursue my own happiness instead.
Oh, totally. And I'm
I'm
not
quitting my
someone
job
who
tomorrow. Sorry.
I'm not someone who has kids. I don't have a family. So I've got some luxury of morphing my life as I
Mhm.
choose to have it. So I can quite understand if someone's got, a family and I've got all these other obligations, things that I did not have, and I'm aware of that. Um, but you'll figure it out. Like if it's meant for you, it's going to find you. But you've got to listen to the signs and be observant. And I think if you ultimately do want to change, you're going to figure it out. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, what a beautiful message, and we just got started, yo! Oh, if you're not tuning in, tune in now so we can fix your life. No, I'll also, I guess, clarify after making that joke. It doesn't sound like you're telling people, quit your job tomorrow. Like, don't make a plan, just whatever it is. If your passion is basket weaving, quit your job as a lawyer and go basket weave. It sounds like there's also, and even still is a little bit, some balancing that you have to do.
Oh, certainly.
Although it
I
sounds
mean,
like waitressing is also like something that you really love doing as, a day job. If it's not the main pursuit, it's definitely something that you like.
exactly what I've managed to do, and I say this as someone who has, well, now that the restaurant industry in Toronto is quite different and there is no restaurant work to be done indoors right now. I, on a good day, have about 4 part-time jobs to allow me to do stand-up and be a freelance writer and a filmmaker. So I am very scheduled. I am very like, what is each hour of my day? I am hustling like I have never hustled before, but my primary focus is making the writing, the joke telling, the filmmaking. That's like my primary focus, and everything else allows me to do that. So, yeah, I'm not just sitting at home. I'm very
Right.
busy.
I'm sure. I mean, even just hearing you talk now, it sounds like you're still working those 15 odd hour days sometimes. But when it's all in the pursuit of this, goal of eventual happiness or, supporting the craft or whatever it is for people.
Yeah, because I still am to a degree involved in TV production. I do this job another job a lot of people wouldn't know exists. I transcribe for movies and TV shows. So when you watch like those home render shows or stuff and people are talking to camera for 2 minutes, I quite possibly am sitting through 2.5 hours of an interview with that person and I'm typing everything out word for word. So that's a job I do for post-production, but I can do that from home. And that's pretty cool. And then on occasion, I get lucky enough to work as a writer's assistant. So I get to go on a set and be in the writing room. So it's interesting how I left that industry to go focus on what I wanted to do. And now I found a way to merge them together, but in my
on your terms, yeah.
So,
is going back cool. into like the writer's room and doing that full time like something that you like a goal of yours now, like since you have this writing experience and comedy experience?
Absolutely, and especially after the past few months of doing so much stuff on Zoom and actually going ahead and taking classes, because I never took classes on how to do comedy. I immersed myself in it and I kind of learned as I went. So now that I've been taking writing classes and, working on my stand-up and,
I've seen you at various open mics and at various showcases doing the stand-up, but the thing that I don't know if it's what you're most known for in the Zoom community, but what I see you doing the most is, of course, the It'll Be Fine, the socially distant baking/food chat show. So I got like a lot of questions about that because the show just looks so fun. First off, congratulations because you just recently hit your 100th episode. Is that right?
We're 2 weeks away from
2 weeks away. Okay, yay!
Syndication.
Everybody, tune in for that. Oh God!
It's gonna be a good one.
Blow that 100th episode up. But
can you do like a little teaser on what's getting cooked?
The recipe is the reason why the show started. It is the recipe that let me explain how the show started. So I had friends over here in this kitchen last summer baking a cake, and it was a disaster. We were just doing it for fun, and it was just a shit show. And I kept saying to them, guys, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. And I was like, that's a really good name for a baking show. And so that cake that we made in my kitchen here, just as a couple of gals getting together for some fun, will be the cake we make for the 100th episode.
Oh! Is it going to be those same friends making it with you? Or who's the guest?
Because of quarantine times and my kitchen being very small, I can't. But I won't say who's going to be on the show, but I'm pretty psyched about what's happening.
Cool.
So, yeah, that's how it started.
That's so fun.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I was actually on It'll Be Fine when we made rainbow cookies, and they did not look the way they were supposed to. They turned out pretty good, right?
They were delicious. They still are. I have a little portion of the dough in my freezer still, and I'll make a couple of cookies, in a couple of days. But they looked nothing like the rainbow that we were supposed to. But they were our own rainbow. It was our own
demo
rainbow.
picture was like this beautifully like stacked
oh my God.
Ruby Jiv
Well, I'm sure though, like the advertisements for the recipe is never how it actually looks. It's always like photoshopped or like actually made of like wax or something. I don't know.
Yes, there is so much art direction that goes into what you see in the cookbook or in the commercial. So I'm making it real. It doesn't always work sometimes.
Which honestly is better. The people need to see how baking actually works. I also have so much more respect, no offense to like chefs and cooks out there, but I just find that there's so much less wiggle room with baking where I would consider myself an okay cook, I like when it comes to baking, just because all those measurements have to be exact, and I'm not a math person at all. It feels like
Yeah.
that is intense.
There is much more. There's much more of a scientific spin to baking, absolutely. But that being said, if I want to change something, I will try it. So,
Well, that's a great attitude to have, because I'd be too scared.
I have it tattooed on my arm, all is possible, to a
Oh.
posible. So I have to live by that, right? So
Yeah,
it'll work out.
in baking and in the rest of life too.
Exactly.
And baking science is at least delicious science. Like
Mm.
you can enjoy your final products.
Exactly. Yeah. It's good messing around, and it's so much fun on the show because
Mhm.
when I do forget to add the sugar or the salt, I let the viewers know that I forgot.
You also just have to roll with it at that point because it's all live, correct?
We do it live to tape, yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean I'll edit it to sort of condense it for the time window that I like to put it in, about half an hour, 35. But yeah, if something goes wrong, I put that in. I just did a shoot that's going to air next Tuesday. I made some snickerdoodle cookies with Kareth Foster down in the States. And her kids were in the show, and one of her daughters was not a fan.
Oh my
And
god,
it was just pure brilliance because like kids are so
they're honest.
damn honest.
Yes. Yep.
So I loved it.
Oh. But speaking of like, I mean, that sounds like it kind of goes into my next question. But just to verify, is that like one of your favorite parts of doing the show, or what is your favorite part of doing the show? If not being able to improvise in those moments of intensity where something might go wrong.
I honestly love the moments. I mean, I do love the whole darn thing, but the moments where I get to taste and eat that for the first time, because I have such childlike enthusiasm for everything I eat. It's like it's food. It's amazing, There's such joy in just getting to try something that I just, I've had some shoots. Had one. The episode airing next Thursday actually. Was one of those episodes where I started tearing up. It was like so good.
Oh, this show is so raw. Oh.
But yeah, I don't know if you guys have ever experienced that, but I've definitely gone to restaurants, Emerald's in New Orleans. I went there a few years ago and I cried. The food was so good. I just love food.
God.
I mean, I constantly have those moments. I tinker and play
We've
in the
all been
kitchen
there.
all the time. And just my
Yeah.
poor fiance will hear me shouting like, "God, I'm so good at this."
Oh my god.
It's fun.
That's
It's
great.
fun. Food is great.
But pretending that Brooks isn't in the room right now, I also want to ask, so who's been your favorite person to interview?
Oh man.
Because you've had quite a few guests on.
Yeah, I mean, I just tomorrow we're airing episode number 95.
Mm-hmm.
So in all that time, I don't know. I mean,
Maybe not
my
a favorite,
parents
maybe
were-
like a most memorable.
My parents did episode number 50. My
Oh.
mom and dad were on the show, and they reviewed the show so far. And that was pretty damn awesome.
I would die.
What
That
notes did your parents have for you on the show?
God, no.
It was so wild at watching them argue on like, because I was giving them like in every batch of 10, so episodes 1 to 10, which
Mhm.
one was your favorite, and watching my parents like duke it out or have a reason as to why they were agreeing, or just it was freaking awesome. And been mixing the show with both doing baking and just having straight food chats with people where there's no baking involved at all. And one of the food chats that I had with a Toronto comic, my friend Mark McNally, he talked about working on a cruise ship and the food on that ship, and then that got my parents remembering about their honeymoon, and it was fun how that yielded some stories. I'd have to say Mom and Dad, episode 50 was probably my fave.
I think everybody can also like understand that answer. Like if your family's been on the show, it makes sense that they're your favorite. Any episode that you remember that had like something particularly disastrous happen?
Episode, I believe it was episode 13.
Oh, of course.
Of course. That we did a coconut peanut butter. Was it a coconut oatmeal? It was a cookie episode. And the cookie, and folks at home may have this happen, when we put them on the tray to go into the oven, it just merged together to form a giant sheet. There were no cookies. It was a sheet cookie. So my guest was panicking. My friend Polly was just freaking out. And I said, grab a glass. We take it out of the oven. It hadn't cooled yet. And we just cut cookie shapes out of the giant pan.
That works. That works too. Oh my God.
I was thinking you could do it like square pizza style, like sheet pan pizza style, where you just get like everybody gets those little squares up.
We totally could have done that too. The very first episode of the show with Janice Israeloff, who's a Toronto comic, and she's been doing Zoom stuff too. We intended to make apple pie bars. And for some reason, I decided to use a spring foam pan to bake this, thinking we would bake it and then I would cut it into bar shape. And we had such a wonderful moment at the end of realization when I was like, Janice, we made a pie. That's what we made. We made a pie.
I've tried the apple pie bars and it never bars correctly. You just end up with a pie or apple crisp. Something about apples. They don't bar.
Apples are the enemy.
Oh, it's fun. It's fun when stuff goes wrong. It really is.
And that sounds fantastic, and I'm really excited for whenever, maybe never, whenever I get to be a guest on the show. It'll be cool. It's fine. No pressure.
No, I would. I would love to have you on.
Oh, okay.
My people will talk to your people.
Yeah, okay. That's really fancy. I don't have people.
Yeah.
Actually, I can't say that. I can like forward you to my fiance. He'll just forward it back to me. He's honestly what I have going for me right now. He's like my tech support. He's like my he gives me notes after these shows, which is always great. I
love it.
My God. Okay, well, that's good to know. I'll look forward to that. But kind of going back into the producery side of things, because the other super cool thing that you have going on is the film No Responders Left Behind. I want to hear all about it. I want to hear how you got involved in the project. I want to hear, did you meet Jon Stewart? Blah, blah, blah.
Did I? Oh, I did. Yeah. Okay, so this was... This film is a cautionary tale of watch what you tweet. That's what I will preface this by saying. So I was, and I still am, a big fan of The Daily Show. I watched it with Jon Stewart the years that he hosted, and I became really, really interested in the advocacy work he was doing with 9/11 first responders. Because on the news here in Canada, weren't really hearing about 9/11 responders after, the towers fell, and I didn't know what was going on aside from hearing Jon Stewart talk about it. So in December of 2015, he came back on The Daily Show when Trevor Noah had started, and he tried to reconstitute this panel he had done about 5 years earlier. And it was really quite jarring because there was one other person available to be on that panel, and they left all the other chairs open. And I'm sitting there on my couch just bawling. I'm like, they were hours away from this funding, being tossed out of the government. And John was like, tweet worst responders and bombard Congress with these tweets. And I tweeted something like, I'm a Canadian, I can't do much, but I'm just offering my support. A first responder who was in the audience of The Daily Show ended up adding me on Twitter. And I was like, whoa, that's interesting. And for some reason, and I cannot tell you why, I messaged him back. I said, how can I help you guys? I don't know why I did that. I had no idea. He said, I'll introduce you to this guy named John Field. And John Field has since become the main subject of the documentary. He's a 9/11 advocate, a former first responder. He was doing construction at Ground Zero. He was helping to pull stuff out. He got injured, I think, like 10 hours after the window closed, where 9/11 responders were eligible for insurance. You only had like 92 hours to claim insurance if you got hurt. And after that, it was deemed basically your fault. It was like, well, tough luck. So this guy ended up forming a group called the Feel Good Foundation. And in a phone call with him, shortly after that, Jon Stewart returned to The Daily Show, I was like, can I bring a camera and follow you around? And he said, of course. And then I called, who is now my co-producer, Rob Lindsay, and I said, Rob, how do you make a documentary? I think I just talked myself into making a documentary. And that is how it started.
Oh my God! I didn't. Oh!
Got that. You essentially got the ball rolling entirely on this project as a film.
Yeah, we had no outline. My crew, I think, hated me that first week. Because they were like, what are we filming? I'm like, just follow these people. Just follow them. And
film now, edit later.
Exactly. But in doing that, we got really close to them, and they let us in on those non-TV moments of very candid attitudes and admissions and behaviors. And I think it was our second day of shooting that Jon Stewart showed up at one of these events, and I got to tell John what I just told you of how it all started. And 4 years later, we're going through some legal stuff right now, but hoping to have some news about a network very shortly. But yeah, I will that to happen. Again, this is not how you should go about your life, people.
Right. But it was kind of like following that whole huge life transition you had to then only like a year later basically have this huge thing happen. That's wild to me.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I said I think that's like a really good way to actually live your life, because it's you going, this is a thing I am passionate about. It's a story I want to tell. It's an important one. And just forcing that story to be told.
It was so wild how just following my writer's instinct, because I do have a playwriting background. I've written about 4 plays. So I do have this ear for like knowing when something is, I need to go this way, and that was the case with this film. I knew that if I didn't know who John Field was, there was a chance someone else didn't know who he was. And I was really quite impressed, and I still am, that this dude who lives in a bungalow in Long Island is doing more work than half the people in Congress representing him in his area. He's the guy to go to. I just find it such an incredible it shows that anybody has the power to change something.
Yeah. And unfortunately, contrary to what you said, it sounds like go out there and do send that tweet. maybe, and you might just make an incredible connection. Because when I first saw that, my brain naturally went to, oh, okay, she has a background as a TV producer. I assumed that was somehow the connection, but not at all. Nope. Send out a tweet.
That is my first.
And care about people.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah.
I do have. Maybe I should have him just like start putting it in the normal chat since we have that as a thing now. But my fiance is. He always like also chimes in with like questions he wants to hear answers to. So he wants to know about the playwriting. He wants to know more about that work where the play's comedy and like. I'd be interested to know like, is your writing process, because this is technically, I guess, a show about comedy, but like sometimes we get into pretty serious stuff, but it is like supposed to be about comedy. But like so your process for like writing a comedic play versus your process for writing stand-up.
Well, it's kind of wild because, as I say, I never took any classes in how to write for comedy or stand-up, or I've never taken a writing class. I never took a playwriting class, nothing. But I ran into I used to work at this television network, CBC, here in Toronto, and I ran into someone who I did not know, but who knew a high school friend of mine who had heard about this thing I did in high school of making chicken soup for a guy I had a crush on when he was sick. And behind my back, I became known as the soup girl. And I went home that night and I was like, I was enraged because I was like, I was trying to do something for love and be kind and lovely. Oh. And I started journaling all these things and all these dates and all. Basically, journaling was how I got started into playwriting, and doing some hard, like writing down each day of like dates gone wrong, stuff I did for love that didn't work out. I think it was about 3 years later, I had my first play, which I called How Does a Drug Deal Become a Decent Third Date? And I had a drug deal for a date. I can't say enough about journaling and writing in a diary each night, and I'm someone who always has a notebook with me, so when I hear like a good line from a song or I hear someone say something on the subway, I'm always writing stuff down. And that is truly how I've written my plays. I've taken stuff that's happened to me, I've put it into characters and kind of followed how it might have worked out where it didn't actually for me. I'm as I'm saying this, I'm like, wow, I really have no process. My process is no process.
Which is like the way that it works for some people. I wish I were like that, but unfortunately I'm the type of person where I have to like sit down and methodically like plug away at something. And it becomes more like homework than anything, but I love that.
Yeah,
I got weird
for
ADHD brain. I got weird ADHD brain. Like random things pop into my head, and if I'm smart, I record them on my phone or something. And if I'm not, which has happened, I'm just like, well, that's gone. It's too bad. That's a funny act.
So is that? Yeah. Sorry.
Sorry. I was just going to say I am just in always writing stuff down as I did for my playwriting for my characters, and I'll put this song with this person, or I'll put this with that person. Now that I'm doing stand-up, it's interesting how I'm doing that still, but then I get to riff on it and do something, and make 5 minutes out of it or what have you. So it's almost like I was doing the thing that I ended up doing without knowing I was doing it.
Well, yeah, that's actually exactly what I was going to ask, because it feels like and other stand-ups kind of do something similar, but when I watch you, it feels like the jokes are also kind of like little stories in themselves and kind of part of this overarching theme, where it kind of goes back to how you described your personal sense of humor in the beginning.
I definitely have a storytelling vibe to my joke telling. Yeah, I definitely do. I'm not like a like a punchline quick person, like that kind of thing. I tell little stories when I do my stand up. So yeah.
Oh my god. And a storyteller in so many ways now. We have the playwriting, we have the stand-up, we have the documentary. Oh my god. Jack of all trades.
I need to know what was bought on the third date. What kind of drugs?
Oh my god. Wow.
Oh God, that was like, okay, first off, let me just say, I had no idea I was going on a drug deal. I had no idea. I had met this guy at a theater festival, and and I remember writing a line in the play when the character, who was basically me, but this gal was playing me in the show, she was like, I didn't realize when he'd say I was off to go do some lines that he was doing lines. Not like freedom. I don't remember, but I don't remember what he sold. But what I do remember was that after dinner, he was like, "Do you want to come with me on an errand?" We drove somewhere in Toronto. To this day, no idea where we ended up, because Toronto changes so frequently. But as we're driving there, he's telling me what to say if the police show up, and he's telling me to do this and to do this, and I'm realizing, I'm like, oh my God, I get to be the lookout. I get to be the lookout.
What a positive way to frame it. I get to be. Oh.
Oh my
Wow.
God. And I'm sure someone's wondering, well, you clearly dumped this guy after that date. No, I dated him for 2 more months.
Oh my god. Wow. What was the thinking behind that? Other than, I
There
guess,
was no
you get a
thinking.
lot for being, like, just young.
I hope he paid for dinner. Like, he made money at the day.
He did pay for dinner.
Basically,
He
you
did.
had to work. Yeah.
Yeah. But I had a coworker who was like very, I mean, she gave bad advice. She was like, you should stick with this guy, see if he's a good one. I was like, okay.
Who is that friend? That is like red flag after red flag. Just, oh my goodness. Whew.
Friend is
I'll
bad.
just share her first name.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, I ended up dumping him because I went into the washroom and I was like, where's the toilet paper? He's like, I haven't bought any. I was like, screw this. That's what did it. He ran out of toilet paper.
Oh my god. I could also see myself doing that because me and Brooks both actually have a bit of a theater background ourselves. So I'm just like, I would also be like, yeah, you're gonna practice some lines. Must be in a show coming up or blah blah blah. Ah, man. Kind of too bad.
Yeah.
It's like, man, I was hoping I'd get comp to see opening night of something. Ah, man.
But yeah, but that play toured for a year,
Yeah.
which was pretty cool. Yeah. So that drug dealer did me a solid.
You know, it's all part of the journey, and that seems to be a recurring theme now I see in your life. Is just like these serendipitous moments of like connection. I don't know. Do you ever like? It's a weird question. I'm kind of doing it on the fly, but like, is that like how you describe your own life? Like, do you ever try and like observe your life and try and account for all of these instances of? But I would like. I'm not necessarily a huge person who believes in fate. I don't know if you are. It sounds like with the kind of life you've had, I would be too.
I definitely am. I mean, I'm wearing like a rose quartz bracelet that is for good luck and optimism. I've been wearing a tiger eye bracelet for most of 2020, just for protection. So yes, I am very much someone who is. I'm always watching out for signs. I absolutely believe I've got, James guiding me, my spirit team sort of pushing me towards certain directions. And I think, I don't know, I think I'm just very observant. I'm always listening. I'm always taking stuff in. I think it's because I'm a natural storyteller. So I'm always looking for where to go. And I don't know what it was that happened to me in my mid 30s that really pivoted me to just follow what makes me happy. But yeah, I just kind of go where the wind takes me. So,
Which,
yeah.
yeah, is another kind of like additional lesson, I think. It's like,
Yeah.
if life is pushing you in a certain direction, don't try and fight it and go against it. And maybe even, that feeling that you're getting from going day in, day out to your day job, if it's not making you happy, maybe a little bit of that is also kind of like the universe trying to push you back to where you're supposed to be.
Exactly. I think so. I mean, I go about everything without a safety net for sure. Like, I really don't have a safety net. And as someone who has had anxiety and panic attacks since the age of 9, as I have, it's pretty ridiculous. I'm such a contradiction, you know?
Anxiety
Yeah.
attacks also very easygoing and like go with the flow and like be gripping to my seatbelt the entire time. Yep. Oh
I
god.
know my therapist, I think, quite enjoys the fact of when I talk about one thing, then I talk about that I do this. He's like, I don't, okay.
Oh wow. Oh my
It's
god.
fun. I don't know. Just be in the moment, really, I think is.
Yeah, which is like also one of those things that corresponds to a lot of the philosophies that are behind like a bunch of comedy genres, whether it's stand up or whether it's improv or
Yeah.
honestly, outside of comedy, a lot of performance styles. It's like one of the main messages is like be present and in the moment. So I think that the fact that you are very much like that with your day to day life
Yeah.
speaks to you excelling and you being drawn to stand up and that
Yeah.
kind of
And like,
life in general.
yeah, and improv was such a big thing for me. I mean, that's how I got started in comedy when I was 16, working at improv clubs in Toronto. And I think that teaching of just saying yes and going with it, I think that was really kind of hammered into me from a good impressionable age. So
Oh,
yeah,
yay!
yeah. So I like improv.
Me and Brooks are big fans as well. And Roz, even though
Yeah,
she's
How
not
we
here.
met.
Oh,
yeah.
God, wherever she is. She's at work. I forget if I said this at the top of the stream, but Roz is also fine, everybody. If you're worried about why she's not here, she's fine. She is healthy. Nothing horrible happened. That
Yes,
being said, we're we can like keep chatting and stuff, but one thing that I want to make sure I do is ask you this question, just because at least towards the end of the interview, we always ask, what is up next on your roster? What are your kind of like, if you had like specific long-term goals for like where you see yourself going in comedy also? So maybe something short-term you maybe want to plug coming up, and then also like, what are your intentions with comedy?
What are my intentions? I think my brother has been asking me that for a bit lately. Where are you going with all this? Um, I certainly want to make 2021 the year that I get writing packets off to TV shows. I really, whether it works or it doesn't work, that is something I will be doing in 2021, is getting that stuff out there. I will be directing my second documentary, so my first time directing. That has a little bit to do with comedy, actually, that subject. Um, and as I said before, I want my Food Network show.
Which
Yeah.
I am 100% behind. Like, I think that you should have a Food Network show.
I do. And definitely another goal for next year, if all is good and I get my vaccine. I want to be back on the road and back in New York and
Mm.
telling jokes and yeah.
And I think that's so much like on the roster for people now, especially with like the little online comedy Zoom community. I don't know when you're planning on going on the road, but we need to coordinate, because I told Chris that like the first thing we're doing when we're able to again is we're going to Toronto. We're gonna visit you. We're gonna visit Desiree. We're gonna visit like
Yeah.
all the other Canadian comedians that we've met on Zoom. For some reason, for those of you who don't know, the TB&J mic is like
Internet.
DMV area, Toronto, and then like a few Californians. And like I have no idea why that happened or like what that means, how the Facebook gods and algorithms assembled that together. But I'm really grateful for it. I'm not going to question it. Like whatever they're doing, it's working. So I'm just like
Yeah, I think for me a lot, I have to credit to Desiree for telling me, oh, do this, Mike, do this, and I'm telling her to do this, and that's been super cool. And yeah, it's kind of wild. Like for us, I mean, America sort of has kind of taken to like the Zoom and the online stuff, I think, way more than Canada has. So yeah, you've got this little pocket of Toronto comics who are down with the Zoom comedy, and we're like, yes, we'll be there, we'll do that show.
Is it like this elitism thing that's like keeping them from getting on, or like what's Toronto's like the attitude of Toronto's comedy community?
It seems, and I could be wrong, but I definitely have this impression that it's like, just, yeah, that's not cool doing it online. You've got to be in person, you've got to be holding a mic stand, you've got to like follow, you know, all the things that we remember doing in clubs, and that this doesn't count. I definitely get that impression from a lot of folks, where as I, you know, and I think I've established this, I'm like, I'm game to try this, sure. And you know, for me and for Desiree, it's kept us so active and so busy and writing and making connections. And I think it's been, you know, just the coolest thing, given the craziness of this year. So
Yay!
I'm happy it happened.
I'm also a big fan of the awesome community we've been able to make, and also just not commuting to the clubs. Although I will bring this up, although I think I've asked maybe on a previous show, but so the truth about like, is it, there's like a comedy club where they put the comics right now in like a plexiglass box to like...
I performed there. Yeah.
Did you not?
That would be redundant, Brooks.
It was both super cool and so bizarre, because I felt like I was in
I would get claustrophobic
in a
so
zoo.
fast. Yeah.
Totally. So to protect everybody, this bar here in Toronto did a super job for keeping protected but still allowing people to be entertained. In the club, put a box around a very tiny stage, and then put a camera that went out to the patio so the people on the patio could watch the show, because you couldn't be in the bar.
Oh.
So it was
Whoa.
like doing this, but then people were behind. It was very like, where do I look? But kudos to them.
Yeah, God bless them for trying. Like,
yeah.
I miss a live audience too, as much as the next person. But Zoom is definitely like, you know, getting to do some writing stuff. And, you know, before all this happened, like, it'd been a really long time where I'd done any sort of writing, let alone stand-up, or honestly done any shows with, like, words. Because, like, it might... won't go too into this because we're almost at the end of our time. But, like, I was working for a theater company where their whole thing is, like, physical theater and performance. So literally a lot of shows where you don't get to talk at all. So to go from that to being able to like talk again is cool, and it's like almost the opposite side of that. But anyway, I want to thank you so much for being here today. I have a little bit of an outro, not really anything formal, but if you guys want to follow Kelly Zemnickis here, you can catch her on YouTube for, again, the YouTube show It'll Be Fine, the socially distant baking / food chat show. You can catch her on Instagram at the Latvian Foodie. You can catch Brooks on at Brooks Likes Food. And you can, follow all of our stuff at district_comedy or district comedy somewhere, either Facebook, YouTube, whatever. But that's it.